All right, today on Musicians Edition, we are looking at number 77 from Essential Elements, and specifically at the snare drum part. So what makes the snare drum part unique in number 77 is the instruction that's underneath the tempo, right? You see our tempo andante. Right underneath that, it says snares off. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what that means. So on any snare drum, you'll see underneath, up against the bottom head, like we've talked about in some of our other snare drum videos, you have these snare wires, right? And that gives the snare drum its characteristic sound, right? So when you hit the top head, it causes the bottom head to vibrate, which then causes these wires to vibrate against the head, and that's what gives us that snare sound, okay? Now there are a couple different ways to control this, right? One way is the simple switch that you have on every snare drum, right? These come in different shapes and sizes. The drum I have here is a little bit different of a switch than this one, but they accomplish the same thing, right? So when I have the switch in the off position, you can see the snares are just hanging below the head. They're not touching. So when I hit the drum, I don't hear any snare sound, right? But when I flip the switch to the on position, right? Now the snares are touching the bottom head. And when I tap the head, I get the snare sound, right? So the other way to control the snares, or the tension on the snares specifically, is this knob right here, okay? Now you can turn this knob whether the snares are turned on or off. The knob will work both ways, right? I tend to only use this knob when the snares are on, because then I can hear the changes that I'm making. So when I turn this knob to the left, right, lefty-loosey, the tension on the snares gets looser, decreases the tension on the snares, right? When I turn the knob to the right, righty-tighty, it increases the tension on the snares, right? So let me show you what that sounds like. So right now I'm decreasing the tension just in small increments. Right now you can hear the snares are really loose, and they're kind of buzzing against the bottom head. We go a little further. We start to almost lose them. Right? Now there's just a little bit of snare left. If I go a little further, then the snares are completely gone, right? So there's no snare sound still happening right now. Okay? Now we'll start to bring the snares back up. You can hear that we start to hear them a little bit. Start to hear them a little bit more. Now we start to hear them again, right? Now it sounds like a snare drum. Now if I keep going, snares are getting tighter. And I keep going. Right? Now they're starting to disappear a little bit, right? And I keep going. And now the snares are almost gone again. You can just barely hear them. So what happens a lot of times when young players start messing with the snare wires, they think, like, my snare drum doesn't sound very good. Let me adjust the tension on the snares. And they think tighter and tighter and tighter, and eventually the drum just sounds worse and worse and worse. We don't know what else to do, right? So think of snare tension as kind of like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, right? We have to find the exact right amount of snare tension to get the sound that we want, right? Too much snare tension, and we're gonna be working against ourselves. Too little snare tension, and we're not going to get the sound that we want, right? So we have to kind of work to find that happy medium between too tight and too loose, where it's just perfect and gives us the right sound, okay? So just getting the right amount of snare tension can work wonders for the sound of your drum. Feel free to mess with that, but if you are using a school's drum or something like that, make sure that you talk to your teacher about it first. That drum is probably more similar to what you have at home. This drum that I have here is a little bit different in that it has 3 different types of snare wires, right? They work the same way. They accomplish the same goal. They're just kind of different weights, different shapes to kind of give a different sound quality. So I have a throw on and throw off switch at the front. Just like that one, it just is shaped a little bit differently, right? Now this one's kind of cool because I have a separate knob for each different kind of wire that's across the bottom, so I can change the tension on each different strand of wires there. And I also have one more knob here, which this is pretty similar to the knob that was on the other snare drum, and that this one changes the tension of all the wires evenly. All right, so we'll get this back on the stand here, and then let's look at number 77. So of course, I'm going to go ahead and, like we've been talking about, I'm going to turn my snares off, okay? And then as I glance through the piece here, I see some flams, I see some eighth notes. I'm going to pay special attention to the dynamics, right? I have a mezzo forte at the beginning, a decrescendo at the end of the first phrase, another mezzo forte in the middle, then a crescendo to forte, a decrescendo at the end of that forte that ends with a piano on our last few notes, okay? So we're going to make sure that we do all of that. And here we go. 1, 2, 3. Two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. All right, so there's some hopefully helpful information about snare wires and how they work and some adjustments you can make to those, as well as playing number 77 with the snares off. So happy practicing, happy snare wire tuning, and I'll see you next time.